Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and welcome to the second installment of our new series, which is talking to authors about their careers. And specifically, we're talking about the careers that maybe didn't immediately shoot off in the first instance. They've been a bit of a slow burn career and really the average career, the career that most authors will have. There are obviously the shiny unicorns who will have sort of an amazing debut that will just instantly become a bestseller. But more often than not, it is a slow burn career. And that's what we're talking about in this series. So I've got this lovely guest, Susi Holliday, with me. Thank you so much for joining me, Susi.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me.
No worries at all. And let's just take it right back to the beginning of your career, how you got a book deal and just sort of the process that you went through to become a published author.
Right, well, mine's been quite a roller coaster. So I started off writing short stories, and I did that because I went on a train journey as part of a round the world trip. I went on the Trans-Siberian Express which lasted about a week. And I decided on that trip I was going to write. I'd been talking about it for years, but I hadn't done anything about it. And then started writing something then, but didn't really have a clue. So came back, did a little night class, started writing short stories there, and just started doing loads and loads of that. And then I discovered it was really hard to scale up from a short story to a novel, and it was a novel I really wanted to do. So I started going to all the festivals and sort of networking and going to all the kind of like a writer days and classes and just trying to absorb myself in the whole thing and meeting writers and just trying to learn from them. And all anyone ever said was to finish it. So I had lots and lots of things that I was starting off. I just was getting to like 20,000 words, abandoning and all that kind of stuff. And then I saw there was an advert for, I used to enter lots of little competitions with my short stories. Then there was one that was for prologues, and the prize was a course which was, I think, being run at Goldsborough Books. And then it was like a kind of a couple of days course. And then there was also some other prizes. So I entered my prologue in that and I got runner up. So I was really happy with that, obviously. So I tweeted about it. And then an agent got in touch with me. So this agent was Phil Patterson, who I'd met him a few years before when I was at Harrogate Festival, unpublished, blogging, whatever. And he'd remembered me, and also he'd signed a friend of mine. So he sent me a message and said, "Have you written this book yet? I really like the prologue." And so I said, "Well, I haven't finished it, but I can send you what I've got." And I think at that point I had 20,000 words. This seemed to be how many words I'll have of everything. And he phoned me up the next day and he said he loved it and he wanted to sign me up. And he didn't normally sign people on a partial, but he really thought that it had potential. And I thought, yeah, so I mean, I thought I was made, like, something like that happens. I was at work when this phone call happened, and I like went to the toilet to take the phone call and just like came out like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But what actually happened was I finished the book. He signed me. I finished the book in about 6 weeks, then did lots of edits. Then we sent it out, I think this was around June. We sent it out in September, something like that. And I was expecting a flurry of acceptances and, like people sending me bottles of champagne. And of course, that didn't happen either. And I think I got about 20 rejections and was starting to think about giving up and writing something else because I thought, okay, this book's not working. And then I decided to get another look. So I sent it to a freelance editor to have a look, and she came back with really good comments. So I made a few tweaks. So we sent it out again to some of the same people and some new people. And then it wasn't until May the following year. So it'd been out since September. May the following year, we got an offer. And I was like quite shocked by that point. So this was, I think May 2013. And it was with Black and White, who are independent in Scotland, but like quite a big independent. And it was a one book deal. It was a tiny advance, but they were really, really keen on the book. So so that's where it started.
That's such an interesting story, and one that's actually quite rare to actually have an agent approach you. So you never actually went through sort of the query trenches.
Yeah.
But I imagine it was a bit of a shell shock situation after you went on submission to then, because you had sort of the immediate good news with an agent getting in touch with you and saying that they want to sign you on a partial and everything, because sort of your career started so well, it must have been a bit of a shock to then have the rejections of submission, because normally you sort of get warmed up by being rejected by agents. So
exactly. So I didn't have any of that, because I've never had, this is I'm still with that agent, so I've never had that experience of trying to find an agent. So yeah, I was very lucky, and he's brilliant. He really has my back, and he really wants the same for me in career wise. So that's always been really good. And he took me through it with all the rejections and stuff. And you start to become a bit numb, like at first you're really offended by everything that happens and why don't you like it, and they always write really nice things, so there's never anything really mean. It's always just, it's not quite for us, and whatever. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was really hard, because obviously as long as the time goes on, you think, right, I'm not getting that big fancy deal anymore. This is going to be something smaller. This was a bit before there were any proper digital firsts, because Amazon publishing had just started picking up people who'd successfully self-published, and they'd moved into the UK, but they were really only picking up people who'd already self-published. So although we did talk to them, they weren't doing submissions at that point. So yeah, it came down to kind of independence, and that's the one I got. But I mean, it was a 1-book deal, so I thought that's fine. We'll just do this book and decide what to do after that.
Yeah. So how did that book go? How was your sort of debut year and everything?
It was great. I mean, for being a small press, they did a hell of a lot of work, and because it was a book set in Scotland as well, and it was a Scottish publisher, they got it into all the shops. It was in Waterstones on the front tables. I did a launch in West London Waterstones where I had 80 people and sold all the books, sold 80 books. Like, it was just incredible. It went to, I think, number 13 in the Kindle chart. I honestly thought I was flying. It sold a lot. Like, it sold a lot in the first couple of months. It really sold a lot, especially digital. And it did, yeah, it did really well. So then what happened next was a bit odd, because I'd actually then, when it came out, I went to Crime Fest and did a panel, the debut panel. And then a publisher who was watching that saw me and really liked what I had to say. God knows what I was saying. And went to my agent and asked what I was doing next. So again, I'm sort of being approached by someone, which is like so exciting. So then I went out for lunch. I talked through the ideas. What I had planned to do was write another book based in the same world as the first one. So what ended up happening was they kind of became a trilogy with one character who's in all of them, but like they're all like 3 separate stories. So she didn't mind that the first one was with a different publisher. She was quite keen to do the second one. We talked it through, we planned it. And this was around about the time of Harrogate. So I came back from Harrogate and I like worked solidly on it, finished it, and got it to her as quickly as possible. Sent it to her, and then just crickets. And I was like, what's going on here? So that was a real blow. That was actually a bigger blow than all the rejections the first time around, because I'd been approached by a big 5 publisher and they'd been really, really keen, and then suddenly just didn't even reply to emails. As it turned out afterwards, they came back and rejected it for reasons which didn't make sense, but it was irrelevant because that editor then left and went to a different company. So I don't know if that was the reason why, and then they didn't want to acquire it, or if they genuinely didn't like it. But at that point, I really felt like giving up, because I thought, I don't know what to do now. I've got this book. I don't have a deal for it. It's kind of a follow-up to the other one. What shall I do? And so luckily, Black and White were still really keen for me to do more books, because I hadn't officially left them. I had just kind of had this meeting and I had planned to write the book anyway. So it turned out that my agent got me a 2-book deal with them to write 2 more, that's how I kind of made it into a trilogy. And I thought, okay, that's fine, because I was working with the same editor again, and I'd been really impressed with everything from the year before. So I naively thought, well, my book went to number 13 or whatever it was first time. This one's bound to go to number 1. This is going to be the one. This one will sell even better than the first one. Yeah. And you'd think I'd know, because by this time I know lots and lots of authors and I know exactly how it works. And I was just so shocked when that didn't happen. And it was very well received, but it just, it got reviews, really good reviews, newspapers, all sorts, and just didn't really sell very many. And then the third one, even more so, just it went like that. I think the book's quality went like that and the sales went like that, and it was just like, I don't know what to do now. And
Always
then
the way, isn't it?
it's really mad. And then, but Jen, you won't believe what I'm going to say next. I was approached again by another publisher who asked me what I was doing, and got asked to write a Christmas crime serial killer book for Hodder, which is what I did. So I did that with the sort of idea being, right, well, I finished this trilogy, I'll go on and do this, and if this one works out, it'll be the first in a series and gets me in the door with another publisher, and we'll see what happens. So I parted ways nicely with Black and White and said, I may write more of these books in future with these characters, but for now I'm going to do this different thing. They were fine. I went to Hodder, did that book. It did pretty well. Christmas crime kind of picking up, you know, people wanting that kind of thing rather than those very kind of romancy Christmassy books. So that was the idea behind it. It did really well. And then we got to release, and then we started talking about what we do now, writing another one. Bye, no one answers me anymore. And so, the same thing. And it turned out they didn't want any more at that point, and they wanted to see what else I was doing. But then I just started writing something completely different, because I think I just sort of lost my mind by that point. Because it's just, you just don't know what you're doing. It's very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, your story is so interesting because it is that sort of, these people keep on building you up with approaching you, so you've then got quite high expectations. Like, I think if you sort of go through the process of being rejected by a load of agents, and then, you know, you don't have that experience of people sort of reaching out to you, you can kind of prepare yourself a little bit better. But in your situation, you must have sort of, I don't know, felt like things were really happening, and then when they didn't, it must have been such a punch in the gut really for you.
Yeah, it's just really hard to pick yourself up every single time, because like writing a book is hard, and then you put everything into it, and then you've got no real control over what happens after that, because you can do all you like yourself with regards to like trying to self-promote, but that's all you can do. You have to hope that your publisher is going to do something with the marketing and PR themselves. And so you're kind of helpless, and all you can do is write another book. But what I realized at this point was I quite liked writing different things. Like, I wasn't kind of pigeonholed into writing a very similar book lots of times, which some people, that's great if you can do that, and some people are very happy to do that, but that just wasn't working for me. It seemed that I was a bit more spread out there. So I think that's what then happened when I got my next publisher, who didn't quite approach me, but it was kind of a mutual thing. Again, not really on submission. We did send it out actually on submission, this one, because it was a crossover, a bit of horror and crime. So we sent it to some horror type people as well, and they were like, it's not really horror enough for us. And then some of the crime people were like, it's not really crime enough for us. Others, you know, yeah, so I actually went to Arenda, because they don't really have that distinction. They're more like, what's a really good book with a story that we like, and we can sell it, and that's what they did. And so I had 2 books with Arenda, and then decided to do something different again, and then I ended up with writing sort of speculative crossover stuff and go to Amazon Publishing, and I'm now just about to release my 4th book with Amazon. So I've had all the publishers.
It's nice to hear someone who's had like lots of different experiences as well, and I don't often speak to people who have sort of crossed over genres. Like, normally it's like I tend to talk to thriller writers because I'm a thriller writer, and it tends to be that they just write thriller after thriller after thriller. So it's really interesting hearing from someone who sort of crosses genre a little bit. It's also interesting what you were saying about the sort of the second book and the third book, and I think that's something that a lot of people watching and listening will be sort of aspiring authors trying to get their first book deal, and I think it's something to really bear in mind going into this, is that is absolutely the norm, that even if your first book does really, really well, because I had exactly the same thing. My debut, The Girl Beyond the Gate, did astonishingly well, and then it's almost like you've kind of got to live up to that debut experience, and 9 times out of 10 the second book will not do as well. And I'm exactly the same as you. I feel like the quality went up, the reviews have been better, but it's not quite reached the same level. And I don't know if it's that sort of debut sparkle. I know they sort of make a big deal about debuts, or what it is, but it's definitely something to bear in mind that, you know, your second book might not do as well, and you've kind of just got to pick yourself up and keep going. And yeah, so on that topic, how did you pick yourself up and keep going when you were sort of having these moments where you were thinking you want to just give up? How did you sort of keep going?
I just had to go back to the fun parts and remind myself why I was doing it, because so I still have a day job, but I only work part-time in it now. So I earn half of my income from writing, half from doing my day job. And I kind of thought, do I want to just go back to working full time, or do I want to keep doing this? And I had so many ideas. I've always got so many ideas. And I thought, well, what would I do if I can't? What would I do with them? Like, they would just be in my head and I don't know what would happen. So I just felt like I couldn't. And so even if I was only ever going to write them for myself, I had to keep going. And then the thing is, people who say I just write for myself, they might think that, but actually you want someone else to read it. You want someone else to read it and go, oh, I love that. Of course you do. I mean, you want that validation that it's something that's people can enjoy, because I'm a huge reader myself, so I want to be able to pick up a book and love it, and I want someone to pick up one of my books and love it. So I think it was that, and I think that I was still getting lots of you know, I had quite a good social media following and get quite a lot of messages and things from people who loved my books and asking for the next one. And that really does keep you going when you're struggling. And, you know, like, I don't tend to read my reviews after, I learned that very quickly after my very first book, that once you get a couple of 1-star reviews, it's best just to not look at them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's fine to get them. I mean, as long as people are not personal, which they obviously are sometimes, it's fine, but I don't feel useful. It doesn't help me to read them. And what I've discovered is, if I'm feeling particularly bad, I purposely read the bad ones, because it's like I want to make myself feel worse. When actually, if I read some of the good ones, I'd realize why I was doing it. And you know, this is someone else's subjective opinion, and it's not the opinion of everyone else who's enjoyed it. So I think, yeah, I think it was readers. I think it's readers that kind of helped me keep going when I sort of thought I couldn't just not do it anymore.
It's weird how us authors do that, isn't it? If we look at our reviews, we tend to sort of gloss over the good stuff, even if there's more good stuff than bad stuff,
Yeah.
and just like hyper focus on the bad stuff. I don't know why we do it. It's like we're trying to torture ourselves. But yeah, the amount of times I've been like looking through and it's like 5-star, 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 and like raving, and then I've come to a 1-star review, and then that's just been my focus, and I've come away being like, that person hated it. And that's all I can think about. I don't think about the good stuff. It's terrible. I don't know why we do it to ourselves. I do apologise. My dog's running back and forth. That's what the cardigans are moving in the background.
Oh,
You just think they were sort of alive. So where are you now in your career? Sort of, you said you've just released your 4th book, was it, with Amazon?
yeah. So that well, it comes out next month. It comes out on the 3rd of the 5th of June. It's called The Street. So that'll be my 10th book, which feels like a bit of a milestone.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Are you doing anything to sort of celebrate 10 books?
well, I'm going out with my publisher that day for lunch, which doesn't normally happen on publication day, so that's nice. And then I'm going to be meeting some friends after that, but I'm not doing a launch. With it being an Amazon book, it's a bit tricky because you can't really put them in shops, so it's not easy to do a launch. However, I do have my 11th book coming out this year as well, which I'm editing at the moment. And this doesn't normally happen, that I have 2 in a year, but this is what happened the last time I had a Christmas book, and I'm writing 2 more Christmas books. So in a big twist, I've gone back to Holliday, and I'm writing 2 more Christmas books. So I mean, I'm still with Amazon as well, so you know, we'll see what happens with them, because I officially I'm still writing standalone thrillers for them, and then the series with Holliday, so we shall see. But right now I am editing that one, which is out just for this Christmas. So yeah, that one will hopefully have a launch, because it can be in shops, and it's nearly at Christmas, and what better time to try and sell people books.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so exciting. Do you write under different names for the sort of Christmas books and the thrillers, or do you just keep it all under one name?
Well, there's just kind of initials. So when I first started writing, I was under SJI Holliday, and then for the first Christmas book, I changed to Susi, and then for the Orenza books, I went back to SJI because they were a bit more similar to the SJI books. Then to Amazon, I went back to Susi. And then now I've gone back to the Christmas books, which should be Susi, but because I'm still with Amazon, we changed them to SGI. So they've now actually gone back and recovered the first one, which was out in 2017, and changed it from Susi to SGI, and then the new ones will also be SGI. So yeah, it's very confusing because but I did get a really funny comment from someone who wrote an angry review one day, who claimed that I had tricked them by changing my name, and the publisher should make it very clear. And I was like, if you look at my Amazon page on the side where you say your little detail, your bio bit, it's got all my books on it, both names, and it says writes as this name and this name. It's not really that hard. But yeah, this person was very unhappy. However, she had read several of my books. I was like, well, that's fine. You can be angry as long as you keep buying my books. Fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I mean, yeah, it is the norm, isn't it? If you're sort of writing for different publishers, and especially if it's a slightly different genre, you do tend to sort of change the name, especially if you're sort of, like you say, again, it's a very unique situation where you're kind of with two publishers at once, which I don't think I've spoken to anyone yet who's got that situation. So it's really nice to hear a unique story. And like, I mean, everyone's story is different, and that's kind of the point of this series, is just highlighting everyone's unique author journey. But yeah, it's really nice to see sort of the different ways in which our careers can take us. So just to finish off, can you give a little bit of advice to anyone who's listening who is looking to go into this career and start to, go down the journey of becoming an author?
Well, the one that I was given all the time, just finish it, because one of the big things that I was doing was I was going to all these events, I was doing all these things, I was talking to people, I didn't have a finished book. So there's no point asking for all the advice at that point, because you can't do anything with it. Although that wasn't quite the case for me, who did get a deal on a partial, but normally you can't. So definitely finish it. And the second thing is, I think, just kind of be realistic, and also think about why you're doing it, because not everyone wants the same thing. So some people do want to make it a career and be able to earn a good living, and they have a plan. If you're going to do that, then you obviously have to write commercial fiction that fits into the categories that will work. I think what happens a lot of the time, because I do some mentoring as well, and what happens usually is people are writing something that just isn't commercial, and they sort of don't want to change it. So I think if you want to be a writer that actually makes money from being a writer, you need to do that. It's very difficult otherwise. There's so much competition, there's so many books out there that you can write an amazing book, but if a publisher can't work out how to sell it, they won't take you on.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a harsh reality that sometimes you have to come to terms with, is that actually, if you do want this to be a career, it does need to be commercial, it does need to be sellable, and it might not be that passion project that you had initially sort of thought about. And it's not to say that we're not passionate about our work, and that the books that we write, that we're not putting our heart and soul into it, because we absolutely are, but we do have to bear in mind that there is a market that we need to try and fit into, and that we need to write something that people are actually going to buy, because otherwise we could just be writing and then not bothering to publish it, just writing for ourselves. So
if you want to do that, or if you choose to self-publish, which if you do well can be a brilliantly good way to do things, but you need to know what you're doing, you can do that as easier. But I just think it's something to be aware of. And I know that there's lots of people who I know who are self-published who they kind of a little bit are wary of the whole commercial traditional publishing side of things, because they think that we're all kind of told what to do and stuff, and that's not the case. All you're told to do is, we need to know where to sell this, or how to sell it, where does it go, where does it fit, what's it similar to. And if you can't think of anything it's similar to, and you can't sum it up in a sort of a few sentences to explain what it's about, probably isn't going to be very easy to sell. And so yeah, that is a harsh reality. But
but I really like how you've sort of worded that, is that it's not that people are sort of telling us what to do. We're still very much doing our own ideas, but it just needs to be sellable. So no, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, Susie. It's been wonderful hearing about your career and your really interesting journey, and I think it'll be really helpful for people to listen to. So thank you. I will leave all of your links down below, so definitely go check out Susie and her books. And I will see you in the next episode, where we will be talking to Louise Beach. So thank you again, Susie, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.